Radio for Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 706. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
And I am Chris in Edmonton.
And Warren is away for this scintillating news segment, but he and Ly Cao are with us for the commentary of Rosa, the third episode of our Series 11 commentary series, our extravaganza, so to speak. Which will be most like, here's the thing. We've planned for a week off in between the 5th and 6th episodes for New York Comic-Con, under the blind assumption that maybe the BBC would deign to promote their show at one of the larger comic events occurring, especially since it's the headquarters of BBC America. So we're hoping, I guess, although we're 3-4 weeks out now, 3 weeks I guess it is from New York Comic-Con, and still nothing announced.
Nope.
For New York Comic-Con.
It's happened in the past where late in the game announcements have been made, so it's still possible something could get thrown out there, but for the time being, nothing Doctor Who.
Nothing at all. There's the
Jodie Whittaker era Doctor Who.
Yeah, there's the Christopher Eccleston thing that's on the Thursday morning at 11 a.m. on the main stage at the Javits Center, where traditionally I think Doctor Who has sort of had major events. I think that's been the same theater. So if you look at the actual schedule, which by the way is very difficult to find on the New York Comic Con website, now we're into this era of things like okay, where would they have room for this? So I'm looking around, and on that Thursday, there's the Eccleston panel at 11, and then there's nothing on that stage until 4 p.m. Technically, and there's 90 minutes in between panels by the looks of it, based on other days and the way they're scheduling things, hitting here and there. So, they maybe haven't announced a panel yet, and it could go perhaps on that Thursday as well, because it would be a nice thing to maybe promote the show that's coming up. I do know that I think there might be some promotion coming up towards the end of the month, as they near the end of production of Series 12. So one would hope that a promotion thing is in the off here for the show, and that's the podcast talking about the show. And then if you want to look at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden, which is another venue where things are happening, they're having the Marvel's Runaway panel. Star Trek Universe is going to be there with Patrick Stewart and talking about all the various things that are going on in the Star Trek world. There's J.J. Abrams and Stephen King's Castle Rock is having a thing there. There's a Walking Dead thing. There's a Steven Universe thing there. So that's a big one too. And there's nothing planned right now for Thursday, and only one thing planned on the Sunday. So there is still room, I guess, for panels, assuming that they are going to actually use all the space and all the time slots for all the rooms on these things. So the dream isn't dead yet.
And bear in mind, there's always a chance that some of the stuff planned may get shifted, or the participants may cancel and they need filler. And so.
I would hate to think as Doctor Who as being a last second filler. Oh, what's his? Because the guy who played Pippin, I can't remember his name. Dominic somebody. You know who I'm talking about. Lord of the Rings.
Moynihan?
Yeah, that's one. I think it's Moynihan. God, I used to love those. I love those movies, and I can't remember the name of the cast.
I can't remember either.
Him, anyway, he had to cancel. I saw that on Friday, and recording this on a Friday. And so there's one thing gone, but I mean, that could just be he maybe wasn't necessarily on a panel or anything like that. I know that a couple other actors have bailed out too, but if you're doing a Doctor Who thing, it's like, hey, can we maybe come and promote our show? If you got the room, if someone cancels, we'd be happy to send our whole entourage over. So, yeah.
Pippin was Billy Boyd.
Who's the other one? Mary.
Yeah, Mary.
Find out who he is. See, this is why it helps to have three
Oh.
people, because Warren and I could talk, and then you go off and do the research, Chris. Then by the time we're done talking,
Dominic Monaghan. Yeah.
it was Dominic Monaghan. So keep your eyes peeled. New York Comic-Con Twitter account's been announcing panels, or at least plugging them on a fairly regular basis over the course of the past couple weeks. So it could happen. It could not. 3 weeks out, though. You'd hope that something would be in the off for New York Comic-Con, which is a pretty big deal, I think, especially since, as I say, BBC America headquartered just down the street. So it's pretty easy for them. But hey, here's now. Actually, you know what? While we're on it, we talked about Christopher Eccleston, who's going to be at New York Comic Con. The Edmonton Expo schedule was finalized as well, and 11 a.m. our time, Mountain Time, is on Saturday. So next Saturday, like this coming Saturday, I guess it is on the 21st, will be the Christopher Eccleston panel. It will be an interview. We had hypothesized perhaps that maybe he's only there for the one day, that maybe he would just do photos and autographs, given that he hadn't done any panels before. So this is, to my mind, the first like general sci-fi panel interview for Christopher Eccleston here at Edmonton.
Well, I think if you happen to look at the information on the website, you'll find that it's Christopher Eccleston. They have misspelled his name.
That is, can confirm it is Christopher. I have to say, many times have maybe I typed that up. I didn't type it up. I know that's many times I've mistyped Church, just the way my fingers work.
Yeah. The person doing the panel is Tanner Zipchin, who did David Tennant's panel last year. I didn't see the Matt Smith one. Did he do Smith as well?
No, that was Sam Meggs flew in for that.
Sam Meggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Matt Smith one. So, yes. Yeah, but we will be there. We'll be there live, tweeting the thing and documenting this historic event where the 9th Doctor Who himself comes to Edmonton, which makes pretty much a clean sweep. We had, Tennant and Smith last year. Capaldi came to Calgary Expo a couple years ago, which we went down. Erica and I went down for that. You didn't go for that, but...
No, I had to work.
You had to work. So look at that. Alberta has hosted all but one of the modern series Doctors, that being, of course, Jodie Whittaker, who is yet to be on a panel because she's busy doing Doctor Who. That's why she's not there yet. But so there's some convention stuff. Also, I should mention that Sylvester McCoy's announced for
Unearthly Convention.
Unearthly Convention.
Yeah.
All the social media handles are still LA Doctor Who Con, so I just keep calling it that. But that's the weekend of the anniversary over the weekend. So that's happening, and I think that's it. Chicago TARDIS is happening the weekend after that. So convention season is gearing up, which obviously means that Gallifrey One is gearing up. They made their first total guest announcement for the 2020 edition of 31 Flavors of Gallifrey One, taking place from February 14th to 16th. Headlining the entire Fifth Doctor guests era, basically, from season 20. Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, Sarah Sutton, Mark Strickson, all there. In addition, Fraser Hines, Joy Wilkinson, and Vinay Patel, writers for Series 11, which is awesome. Ray Holman, who's the costume designer for the current show right now, and has also designed Matt Smith's costume way back when as well. Michael Collins, who's the storyboard artist. Michael E. Bryant. Oh, my God. He's such a great raconteur. He was on this podcast a few years ago, actually, talking all about the stuff that he directed back in the 1970s.
And as we commented back in the day, and I'm sure I hope it's still the same. His recall of stuff he did 40 years prior was just amazing.
It is amazing. I have to think that he's like just been reciting this to himself over the intervening 40 years since he worked on Doctor Who, just so that he has it's just he's sharp as a tack. Emma Reeves and Una McCormack. Una's great. She's been on the show. Who have written novels and books and stuff at the Doctor Who universe. Here's a big one. Gary Russell makes his return to Gallifrey One.
Did he lose a bet or what's going on with Gary?
I don't know.
He's coming back for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah,
because he had said he was going to give up the circuit.
I know. Well. if it's Gallifrey One, I feel like there's unless it's the last one, it's not the last one. Don't worry, because he said he'd be there for the last. Jody Houser, who of course, does the Titan Comics books. Scott Gray, who's works the DWM comic strip. Here's the great thing: I don't think they've ever had this before at Gallifrey One. Two second assistant directors, Mark Corden and James de Havilland, are going to be there. Here's an interesting thing regarding Mark Corden's thing. He mentions in his bio that he is second AD on both on the forthcoming Doctor Who Series 12 and 2020 special. So that could be breaking news. And then our old favorites, Paul Cornell, of course, he's there. He's the game show MC these days, as well as just a fine fellow, of course. Tony Lee, Richard Diddick, Christopher Jones, Jason Haig, Ellery, David Howe, and Sam Stone. So there's your first big announcement, and this coming week will be another announcement. So they say, so stay tuned for that, folks.
And it's not William Hartnell, I've been told.
It's not William Hartnell. No. 100% not William Hartnell. So yeah, now the wheels are turning. Now there's like an actual thing to look forward to. I'm all of a sudden looking forward to Gallifrey One again.
Yeah, and on top of that, so as we've said, at least here and there over the past few months, tickets for Gallifrey One miraculously haven't yet sold out. There is an expectation that now that guests have finally been announced, and we got some really cool names in there, that the last
200
small
I think
amount
is what it was,
yeah, something like that. The last small amount of tickets may go fast. So now that there are guests announced, and if you're on the fence and you're not sure and you think you can go and all that kind of stuff, strike while the iron is hot.
Yep. Get them now, folks. Get them now, especially before the big announcement this coming week. So, what else is happening in the news? Oh yes,
DVDs.
DVD news. The Macra, yeah, that animated story that you in the UK have watched about a year ago. It's finally coming to North America. It's finally been confirmed coming to North America on DVD. On November 19th. It's now available for pre-order. I have done so. So finally I'll have the Macra in my possession until the season 4 box set, Patrick Troughton season 1 box set, as we'll call it over here, comes out sometime once Phil Morris returns all the episodes that we're missing.
Unless I wonder if they're gonna. So there, just total aside, for the Blu-ray stuff, there's been like questions about like how do you handle the fact that Twin Dilemma was at the end of season 21?
Oh, I know.
But also the fact that season 4 of Doctor Who had a few Hartnell stories, and then into Troughton. Like, what do you do there? Is it going to be a hybrid collection of two Doctors' stories or whatever? So. I'm curious.
It's going to be intriguing, isn't it? I am just so I'm at this.
You say intriguing. This is intriguing to all of 7 people on the planet. But
I'm going to say
2 of them.
Entertaining. I'm going to say entertaining. Actually, is how I'm going to put it, because I'm at the stage now where I kind of enjoy fan uproar in regards to trivial things, we're going to get, Lee Binding has been doing great work on the DVD cover art and everything, but we are for the first time going to get dual Doctor artworks at for season 4 and season 21, which is exciting. But you're right, the naming, what are they going to name it? They've already dug themselves this hole. You can't really call, it's Patrick Troughton's first season with a couple William Hartnell stories in the beginning, and it certainly isn't Colin Baker's first season as Doctor Who.
Yeah,
it's going to be very, very interesting. I think it'll just be called Patrick Troughton season 1, and then Hartnell will also be in there, on the cover. Boy, I love this. We're speculating about DVD
or do you say Hartnell season, because over here, with the titles being different over here, theoretically you could even split them and do Hartnell season 4, Troughton season 1. But in the UK you couldn't do that because of how they're taking just the season titles.
Exactly.
But I don't know. You know how there's like the you know how there's like there's supposedly like job interview questions and things like that. Like you can ask and you can kind of glean information on somebody's personality and whatnot based on how they answer. In the Doctor Who fandom world, questions about these hybrid state things potentially might be good for gauging what people are like in fandom. Just like one of my favorites is if you when you organize your Doctor Who DVD shelf, where do you put the Lost in Time discs?
Oh yeah.
Like that can be telling as to how somebody's brain works.
Well, it's going to be irrelevant in 4 to 5 years' time.
Yeah,
You
maybe.
know? Well, I think it is anyway. You can put them where you want when I got all the Blu-rays. Let me tell you that. We still wait for next month though is the season 10. So that's good. I'm looking forward to that one. And then of course we don't have a North American release date for the season 26. Sorry, Sylvester McCoy season 3. And I don't think it's available on Amazon yet. I have not checked since it was announced, but then we have in December we have the season 23, which is the one I'm really, really looking forward to. So,
and even then for the VAM, yeah.
Oh,
well, even back with the DVD release of Trial, the VAM was just fantastic.
Oh, I know. They got to top that somehow. I mean, Ed Stradlin's documentary on the trials and tribulations of that whole era is just like a masterpiece. But I'm sure they'll do something. It'll be great and lovely, and I'll buy it.
I'm curious because Trials and Tribulations and 7 Year Hitch are kind of like the benchmarks of the best stuff ever done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ed's doing stuff for the current DVD set still too. I mean, the current Blu-ray set rather. So I don't know if he's doing the big years spanning ones, but we'll have to see. Freema Agyeman has finally, if you will, because everyone else has sort of come back to Big Finish, is coming back to the Doctor Who universe, I should say. She's coming back to Big Finish. She's coming back in Torchwood Dissected, co-starring Eve Miles, of course, as Gwen Cooper. So Martha Jones is back, not in Doctor Who, but in Torchwood. How intriguing, in a new audio drama that'll be set to be released in February of 2020 when Gallifrey One occurs. So, but you can pre-order that. So, yes, that was quite a big thing. There was quite a big announcement. Freema Agyeman was very excited and stuff. Thinking, I mean, she was doing conventions up in the early part of this decade, but she hadn't really been to certainly the ones that we've been to. I know she was in one. A couple weekends ago because David Tennant was there and I think even Billy Piper. I think, yeah. So she's been doing some of the bigger commercial cons, but so she hasn't stepped completely away from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt she's been busy with New Amsterdam.
Yeah, hit show on American TV.
Yeah, I enjoy it, and also as a result, living in the States while doing so, which I guess would open some doors for U.S. based conventions. And
that's true.
And stuff, but yeah,
just a quick hop and a skip and a jump. So awesome. Freema Agyeman back in the world of Doctor Who. She's lovely, so good for her. Finally, it has finally happened. They announced this over a year ago, but I was kind of hoping that it would just sort of be forgotten about and shuffled under the rug. But CTV, the television network, which owns a great deal of television stations in this country of Canada.
Bell Media is.
I know, but I'm just trying to start. I don't want to go up the whole chain. They own Space. Space, of course, the Imagination Station, which they originally branded when they first signed on back in 1997. They've been known as Space ever since. It has the depressingly bland placeholder name of CTV Sci-Fi Channel, joining the crop of CTV Comedy Channel, CTV Drama Channel, CTV Life Channel. I find it odd, just because these days we're like Netflix and Hulu and we've sort of gone away from naming things as channels in this new streaming universe that we're in, and CTV has just buckled down and everything is called a channel now. So yeah, CTV Sci-Fi Channel. They had a 30-second launch video. It didn't include a single clip of Doctor Who. So
yeah,
there you are.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had space for years anyway, but
I do. I
I'm
have
still
it.
sad.
I bought it. I signed up for it because support the local distributors and stuff. But
Sure.
yeah, but no, they didn't mention Doctor Who. I suppose how can you mention Doctor Who when you don't know when it's coming back? For sure. Even though you could have said 2020, they said both Star Trek Picard and Winona Earp will both return to CTV Sci-Fi Channel in 2020. And Winona Earp hasn't even shot a single frame of season 4. So, maybe Doctor Who's moving away from space. Maybe that's a thing. I can't even call it space anymore. But
I wonder where it would go if they didn't pick it up.
that would be surprising. But given that it's not mentioned anywhere in the literature or indeed on the promos, I'm suddenly starting to think where would it go?
Breaking fake news: CBC reacquires the rights to Doctor Who.
Well, I mean, and we often talk about streaming stuff on this podcast, but because HBO Go will now be the home of Doctor Who after its initial airing in the United States for modern Doctor Who, but here. HBO Go is basically Crave, which is also owned by Bell Media. So they own the whole entity. So it's curious that Doctor Who is not featuring here, but is still, but then again, they also air the Star Trek Discovery, which CBS All Access airs in the US, but CBS All Access here in Canada doesn't have because they don't have the rights to it because they sold it to CTV and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah. Well, there's also distribution stuff done through like Netflix. So, like streaming service X or Channel Y sells rights to like Netflix or Amazon or whatever. So they can't carry it in every country in which they operate. And
yeah,
I don't know. It's a jumbled mess. That's what it is.
It is a bit. And BBC Canada here is not anywhere near the titan that BBC America is in the US. So I can't.
Oh God, no!
I can't see it come. But then again, why not? Why BBC? Maybe BBC Canada. I can't remember who owns and operates BBC Canada here in this country. Maybe they think, hey, we should have our flagship show, and then the BBC could very easily promote it on BBC America and BBC Canada and not have to say space or whatever. So
BBC Canada is owned by Chorus with a minority stake held by BBC Studios.
BBC Studios, interesting.
80-20 split, yeah.
80-20. So who has the 20? The 20 is BBC Studios?
BBC Studios, yeah. Chorus owns the majority.
How fascinating.
So, yeah.
Just speculating, of course, but still, just feels odd that Doctor Who is nowhere in the promotional buzz for the new CTV Sci-Fi channel. We shall see. We shall see what happens, everyone. But that's it. That's it for this news list. After the very short break, it's time to resume our Series 11 commentaries with Rosa. We're back with our third episode in our commentary series, and a first-time guest. I can't believe we waited this long to have you on the show, but it's time to welcome Ly Cao from Pixel Who on for this commentary. Hello, Ly.
Hello.
I don't know why it has taken us this long to have you on the show. I offer our humble apologies.
I may or may not accept it depending on how this episode goes.
Okay. I haven't even had Nathan on, your other half in the Pixel Who initiative, for lack of a better term. I love the art. I'm sure anyone who's been to a Doctor Who convention in North America over the past little while has probably seen your booth. But tell us about Pixel Who.
Yeah, so we do pixelated Doctor Who artwork. That's actually how we started off, and it's actually just Nathan sitting there taking. Originally, the project was him taking one Doctor and pixelating every single character that ever appeared in an episode, whether it was major, incidental character. If they were in the background, they were included. And it's done in order of appearance as well, and in order of episode. And so it's like a visual episode guide for Doctor Who fans, and it's him just going ... So this project which is now, I guess, 8 years in.
Wow.
Is a huge labor of love. Like, it's literally just him as a love letter to the show for all the creative folks that have been involved in a beloved fandom of his and mine as well. But it's been a really fun ride. And honestly, I think for him, he loves it because, he gets to rewatch Doctor Who for research. Come on. That's fantastic.
Right.
But yeah, so we started doing that, and he started expanding on some other beloved areas, fandoms as well too. So now we do things for Marvel and Star Wars, and then we do some Harry Potter stuff as well. But the main thing has always been Doctor Who, and what's been really fantastic about it was a fan of ours that had actually sent our stuff over to some BBC folks, and they contacted us to be a part of one of their official games.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right. Of course.
Legacy.
Yeah. So it was really awesome. So they actually created an entire storyline to explain why the characters became pixelated. So we're actually canon to the Doctor Who world, which is
Nice.
insane. And it's fantastic. So all of this stuff has been approved by the BBC. And so don't worry, guys, if you're worried, like, oh no, do people know about them? No, PBC totally knows about us. They are very aware of us. Yes. And it's actually been really fun because for our involvement in the game, they actually had Nathan create some visual examples that have never been shown before. So things like the TARDIS square and that sort of like the courtyard and stuff. So he actually got to do original artwork as well for the BBC. So there are certain things that if someone does the Skaro degradations and they do an illustration of that, it's actually mimicking Nathan's original, which is pixelated, which is kind of fun. So it's like a reverse of what we normally do.
Wow. Yeah, Chris, you played Doctor Who Infinity. You know what
Legacy, yeah.
about. Legacy,
Yeah,
sorry,
the Doctor Who Legacy,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was...
No, I did. I played the hell out of that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Is he using like Microsoft Paint here? Like what kind of?
No, yeah, he actually created his own hybrid version of pixelated characters.
Okay.
So he wanted to be able to really do the half pixels as well as full pixels. So if you've ever seen, I think we've done videos showing how he does it, but he actually has three screens up at any given time. And it's him because he's a professional graphic designer outside of this, but it's him with a very old version of Photoshop, where he's removed all of the filters because Photoshop has a tendency to want to smooth lines. And he's like, no, I want all of the lines. So he has that. He created his own grid, to 300 DPI, which is a very technical graphic design term, but he has that. He made his own grid, so they're all similar in size. And then on the other side, he has the reference image, and it's him just literally going ... looks over to the reference image, looks over to his image, and then he moves it half a pixel or however much to actually create the image. And it'll take him anywhere between 20 minutes to a couple days for a single character.
Oh my God! So I've seen that the two posters. Let's face it, with with all the characters in Doctor Who. So if you're saying 20 minutes ish per character, at times a lot of 50 odd years of Doctor Who, that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I think the poster that probably took the longest was Matt Smith's, and that was because that was his that's all of his seasons plus the 50th anniversary. That took Nathan close to 6 months to complete.
My God. Wow. Yeah. Longer than the episode itself.
Yes. Yeah. So fans are always like, oh, when are you going to come out with this poster? I was like, it's just one guy doing it, guys.
Yeah.
I was like, I promise we're getting to it. But yeah, he's working on another full poster right now. And hopefully we'll have it done by next year. But yes, he's working on another classic one. So we're very excited.
Very cool. And you're sort of in charge of the booth at the conventions that you go to, so you get to see people's amazed reactions at this thing. What's it like to see people sort of react to the awesomeness that is the artwork?
You know what? It's one of my favorite things. So what's interesting about this art style that Nathan has decided to become an expert in is that he, if you look at it, purposely gives no facial expressions to any of his characters. Mm-hmm. And so the reaction that people have to the posters is actually a reflection of how they feel about the show. So as they go through the poster, they're like, oh my gosh, I remember that episode. It freaked the heck out of me. Or, oh yeah, that one, oh, that made me cry so much. And you can see them literally reliving watching the show as they go through the poster. And it's amazing because it's their connection to the show that brings these characters to life. And it's pretty awesome. And I think it's a testament to Nathan's art style as well, because it's very simplified, right? It's like modern pointillism. So it has to convey as much information as possible with as little, supply of colors and, that sort of thing. So it's really fascinating to kind of see people essentially instill themselves in the artwork and love it because of their love for the show.
Yeah, I have a 13 button on my fall coat, which I wear around proudly. So. In her launch outfit, not her actual completed outfit. So I think.
You have the regeneration. Yeah, that was actually a limited edition one.
No, I don't think. I think I have the one that was like the trailer, like the reveal video one.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the dark gray coat that she had there. So there's also like with action dollies, there are many different variants with Pixel Who buttons and stuff. So. Well, that's fab. Splendid work, all of
Thank you
on that. Speaking of splendid work, Rosa, I guess that's a good segue. I think it's a reasonably good episode that we're going to watch today, with Lee here doing a commentary. So I assume everyone's got your legally purchased Blu-ray, DVD, HD, DVD, VHS, and Betamax copies of this.
I do have Betamax, yes.
You do? Oh, good. You got the Beta. Okay, good. Or Betamax, as we would call it here in North America, but I'm throwing a bone to you Brits. Okay, here we go then. Rosa. We're going to press play in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Rosa in 3, 2, 1, play. And there's our spindly BBC logo, which... you just believe that it's playing. Hey, it's the new titles. What do you think of the titles, Lee?
I actually really like them. It's very much her style. It's very organic, which is kind of cool. And I feel like it was another fan who created this, wasn't it?
It's Ben Pickles, ex of Vancouver. I think he still is in Vancouver.
Yeah. A young show-off who was known to warn back.
No, he's a monstrously talented kid.
I know, but he's
in one of my fan films. I shoot him with a much worse effect. much worse.
Yeah. Montgomery Bell.
Super humble about his abilities too.
I wasn't sure of Chris Chibnall sort of said, hey, we aim to educate as well as entertain, and some people said, oh, stupid, we shouldn't be doing that. But actually both this and Demons of the Punjab led me to actually read up on things. But when I first saw this, like, I didn't know that Rosa Parks had a bus incident in 1943, and I just assumed that, like, the plot of this episode was going to be Rosa Parks is stuck in a different time and is protesting in a different era, and time is going to be messed up. But no, this is actually a historical event, and I'm a dummy. But it was
both those things are correct.
Yes, but it is the same driver. It is the same driver. What's his name? She protests back in like 12 years from now. This is an actual historic fact, which is quite astounding when you think of it.
The actress who plays Rosa is just absolutely amazing.
She is. Vinette Robinson, who had been in 42, also written by Chris Chibnall.
I totally forgot that.
Yeah.
Also, why is this cop carrying a gun? Oh, right, Alabama. No, wait, yeah, Alabama.
He's a bus driver. That's not a cop.
Yeah.
That's a
Sorry,
bus
cop.
driver.
That's my Canadian default. The only people who carry guns here are cops.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's just America. That's just...
Yeah, people with hats like that. I mean, those hats are for the province of police officers and Lego people before they came along with ball caps several years later. But
I don't think I've ever seen a bus driver wearing a hat.
I kind of wish they would.
I feel like I mostly see him in like movies, like historical movies.
Mm-hmm. A certain amount of respect. I mean, ushers at baseball stadiums used to have caps like that. I mean, everyone had a cap.
Or a hat, a fancy boy hat. And then nerds had to ruin fedoras.
Mm-hmm. Kudos to the production to go down to South Africa and like find a bus from 1943 and I guess 55, although maybe the bus is the same. I haven't looked very closely, but you probably can't hear the music right now, but the background singers will go, ooh, duck, Doctor Who. They're actually saying that.
Where
I
did they
actually
shoot
didn't
this?
realize that.
Yeah, they are.
Like, this is not... I don't remember where the location is.
South Africa. They shot this in Cape Town.
Oh, this is South
Yeah.
Africa. Okay.
Yep. This and Demons.
Yeah. No. That's this in Ghost Monument. Demons is in
Oh, right,
Spain.
right. Sorry. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Demons is Spain,
Demons is
right?
Spain. Yeah.
You knew that. I know. You misspoke. I trust you, Chris.
I actually really like this scene too because it's the first time they really show more of the TARDIS as well from the inside.
That's true.
And
We've
all of the
yeah.
fun little designs.
We're watching this relatively out of sequence. We've mostly recorded our commentaries in sequence, but even though this is going out third, dear listener, this is our second last commentary that we're recording. So we've already seen all the other episodes for the most part. And so when you say like, oh yeah, it is the first TARDIS scene, because literally at the end of the previous episode was the Ghost Monument.
It's the first
Yes.
story with the TARDIS proper, yeah.
Yeah.
For such weighty subject matter, this is a pretty damn funny episode.
Yeah, it is
Mostly
actually.
due to her.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to, balance it out, I think, especially when you're doing Doctor
Oh yeah,
Who.
and it's not like irreverent or anything. It's just got some really great lines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you want to do a commentary on this one then, Lee? I can't remember where you rated this one in our little questionnaire that we sent out.
Sorry, this scene,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no kidding.
the slap just sets the tone for the scene,
Yeah.
for the whole episode. You know what, for me, honestly, so I am totally an SJW person, and I always have been, but probably only within the last year when I've done panels and moderated them even, I've just been very open about it and just speaking out on it. And Rosa was actually my number one episode because I think it's been a catalyst for a lot of conversations that have needed to happen for a really long time.
Yeah. And
I can't tell you how many conversations and panels I've done about Rosa in particular, and just really talking about just what it's like in real life as well nowadays.
It's shocking and sad that some fiction set in 1955 can have more relevance to today than something
It should.
set in the future or even in the present.
I mean-
day.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I'll be honest. I have people tell me I need to go back to where I came from. Still,
Okay, great. What
it's
you mean,
like
America? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm because I'm a bit of a smart A. I tell them, I'm like, oh well, I'm from Northern Virginia, so I'm 2 hours from here. So you want me to drive
Right.
2 hours from here and get back home? Yeah, it's not difficult.
Yeah. Direct me to the nearest Avis, please, and I will rent a car.
Yes. Yeah.
No, wait. I don't listen to idiots. Never mind.
Yes.
I probably shouldn't have been taken by surprise by the slap, but it did shock the hell out of me when I saw it.
Well, because Ryan thinks nothing of it. In his time, it's like, well, you dropped a glove here, and it just brings everything into sharp relief of what America
it does.
was, and really, I know Canada was equally as bad in our own way, just like every other colonized nation. We can't be on a high horse either, especially when it comes to our indigenous population. But Ryan and Yaz take life for granted. They are a part of civilization in their time, and they try to interact with civilization here. And it's like I've never felt more scared for a companion, be it aliens or robots with lasers or anything, until when later on we see them in the cafe, and it's like, oh my God, this is a terrifying situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of at least for me, a white male, it's like, oh, wait, this is how people have to feel all the time.
Yeah.
Which I don't deal with. And then so it kind of smacks you in the face going, hey, idiot, maybe you should think about that.
I think it's the first time too they really show time travel and how, yes, they've tried to have diverse companions and stuff, but how it can really affect a companion to go back in certain times. Because they kind of made a nod to that, with Bill and Capaldi, when she goes well, I have am I okay in 1800s London? I've got a lot of melanina, she even makes note of it. But But
Well,
there's
even Martha Jones in Shakespeare Code.
yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of
And
like
that just gets blown off. Yeah.
there's a lot of like talk of it, but it's not like as overt as this, where it's obviously an issue. And I think I'm glad they kind of hit it like head on. And I'll be honest, like this restaurant episode was just like there are just certain points in this episode which were especially, I don't want to say triggering, but very like I live that life, not to the extent that unfortunately other people have to, but I do experience some of this as well. I can't tell you how many times. So for those of you who don't know, like Nathan, for the listeners at home, Nathan's white and we're an interracial couple. And there are plenty of times that we, depending on where we travel, because we go to conventions all the time, we will get stares because we are interracial. I've had people blatantly ask me how we work as a couple because we're two different races.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know what you've been told about anatomy, but the anatomy is the same. like I don't.
This isn't a dog and a cat.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But yes, I've gotten these stares. I've many times have been on the other. I mean, I've received many of these stares. I won't leave the car in certain states when we're getting gas and stuff. And I actually had a coworker of mine who said, "Oh, is it like?" Because and I just want to preface this. So like I have very open conversations about race with people. I have no qualms about them, and I enjoy having these conversations because I feel like the more educated people are, the better off we all are. But I had a coworker who was white and was like, "Oh, do you not get out of the car because of black people?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "First of all, no." And I was like, "No, because the white people make me nervous." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was like, it's not like. And by the way, I lived in Charlottesville for 5 years. I was a graduate student at UVA, and we had the big, Nazi riot, essentially, the protest there. So I was like, no, I've never had a black person come with me at a torch and want to harm me for not being white.
No kidding.
But I've seen that with white people. So no, I'm more afraid of the white people than I am, which is ironic.
I got to tell you, I have, not that I'm comparing the situations at all, but like I've walked into a room where it's all white people. I'm like, oh, this is not good because they're going to tell me stuff they'd never tell you. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear any of this. I'm not like you.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. Which is, like I said, it's not comparable. But
No, but it's interesting perspective.
That's my version of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting
Oh,
perspective.
great. A bunch of rednecks.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the sense of entitlement that white people have that, anything they say is like going to be the correct thing or they're in the majority. I've often called, white privilege is when you're the only white person in the room and you never feel like you're in the minority. That is basically like what white people feel like everywhere, deep down, even though I have people, oh no, but it's there. It's there. And so, Jodie Whittaker and Bradley Walsh are walking quite comfortably through 1955 Montgomery, Alabama. Going back to the Shakespeare Code, I find that hopefully maybe that opinions and sort of like, realization has sort of moved on where the doctors, this white guy in 16th or 17th century England, whatever the hell it was, 1599, I guess, is basically saying, oh, just walk around like you own the place. Like, of course a white guy could say that. Here is poor Martha Jones, terrified out of her life. And the doctors say, just walk around like you own the place. And I feel like that is such, even though it's only 12 years old, it is such an outdated approach to sort of dealing with race in past times, because let me tell you, Ryan just tried to walk around like he owned the place too, and he just got slapped for it and threatened to be lynched. So
Not even like he owned the place, just like he belonged.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be here. Yeah. I had a really interesting conversation with someone once where I had a patient who was extraordinarily racist and said awful racist things to me, and I was like, this is not appropriate. I didn't sign up for this. So I managed to make an assignment change, thankfully, with the other nurse. And so she took on that patient for like the last 3.5 hours or so. And I just, I took a different patient. And it wasn't a big deal, but I had someone tell me that I needed to learn how to deal with it. And I was like, no. And this person,
No kidding.
this person was a white woman, and she just like, no, like they're just trying. And I was like, no, racism is a different thing. It's not like a patient who's being behavioral. This is a completely different category. And I don't have to take it. And she kind of kept going on, and I finally just said, I'm sorry. I was like, but as a white woman, you don't get to tell me what I get offended by.
Yeah.
And she
fair enough.
she took a pause, and she said, well, I've been minority overseas. And I...
No, you haven't.
I was like, I am walking away from this conversation because
Yeah.
it's not going to be pretty after this point. I was so like angry. I remember just like so angry at her statement. And I went home and I remember telling Nathan this. And Nathan's like, what the actual heck? Like he was like, because he lived in Egypt for 8 years. And
wow.
yeah, and he was like, no, it is not the same. He was like, it is
No.
nothing like
No,
being a
it's
minority in
absolutely
the
not the
US. And he made a good point. He's like, unfortunately, he's like, I think it's like colonialism. He's like, so much was colonized by white people that you could still be the only white person in a country and there's deference paid to you. Like it's just that it's part of that white privilege. Like he's like, I can walk around a country at night, not speak a lick of the native tongue and have no problem at all. I wouldn't be bothered. Number one, because I'm white, and number two, because I'm a male. And I thought it was like a very poignant, comment on the whole situation.
Not to interject in this very important conversation, but there is a line about a minute ago when the doctor sort of says "Oi, Brando," something like that, and I wish that it was the line that I originally heard, and I thought she said "Rando," and I thought that is even much
I think
funnier.
I did too, actually.
Yeah, it's actually Brando because it looks like Marlon Brando in the Wild Ones. But I thought I would have loved him.
I was worried about
Rando.
about
I would have
this.
loved that. What's that word? Sorry.
Well, previous to this coming out, I was really worried that I was like, oh, is a British show gonna, and with the alien part of it, is that going to cheapen this whole thing? But it turns out, no, they actually pulled it off.
Well, and a British woman writer and a British person and like a British, I think Tanzanian, I think Mark Tonderai is, or is he Zimbabwean? I know he's dual citizen.
I just figured like, is anybody but an American going to be able to do this right?
Yeah,
I didn't think a Canadian would either, but
or is
we just don't have the same background.
Yeah, does the separation help to look at it with like clearer eyes? I don't know. What are your thoughts on the matter, Lee, about British people doing a story on Rosa Parks set in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955? Is that wrong or right or what?
I thought the writing was really well done, honestly. I wasn't bothered at all that it wasn't necessarily an American writer. And I think it's interesting in the sense that they obviously had done their research, but it does say something that concept of racism knows no country bounds. Like it's not just an American issue. So it's not to say that someone else can't tell the story any better than an American could. You know what I mean? So I had no qualms with it. I know some people did have problems with it, but I thought it was well done. I think a lot of people like had issues that it wasn't perfectly historically correct, but I was like, the show is not a historical show. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be. I give them liberty to add some dramatic aspects to it. So I'm not like bothered that the set dressing wasn't exactly right, or something like that, which I have heard. I think people are just trying to find little things to nitpick about it, and they're missing the overall point of the story itself. But yeah, no, I think it was quite well done. I mean, it deserved the Hugo nomination. I don't think it would have necessarily been better or worse if it had been an American writer. I also love this whole Banksy sort of back and forth.
Yeah, it's great.
I love this sort of like police procedural thing here that like all four sort of working as a team, figuring stuff out, dropping clues. Oh, she said this. Oh, he said this here. I like that. I like it when they work as a team. I think they do work well as a team, perhaps at the expense of spotlight on some of them. Yaz mostly. That's a good shot. I like the silhouette of
the silhouette was great.
Yeah.
I think also too this was very interesting because this was also kind of like a nod to like the misogyny and like the sexism that the Doctor is having to deal with now too, being a woman, and having to have that along with the racist aspects of the storyline as well.
Yeah.
And I will say
Although I expected more misogyny, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I think they definitely delve into a lot more, like with the witches episode and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do. I think that's. I mean, there are more important themes perhaps to focus on in this story than.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's deal with the prejudices one at a time.
Yes,
perhaps,
yeah.
So.
And I love her I love her subtle sort of stand up, like her responses to the police officers.
Yeah,
questioning.
I don't recognize anybody by that name here. Yeah,
Yeah.
by that description. That's
Like
just
no one here who shouldn't be here, officer.
Yeah.
And this was interesting because this was a very palpable threat, like more than like some other monsters we sometimes get. Like this was a very like scary scene with this officer of like he's an authority figure and he's obviously, he's following what is the law at the time, but is obviously misusing it, and it's just very like it's very frightening, threat actually.
And it's not something that the Doctor can just sonic away either,
Mm-hmm. Which is the crux of the whole thing later, too.
Yeah. Chris, you and I usually talk about visual stuff and things. We're talking about some pretty heady topics. We'll get to camera angles and stuff later on, I promise. Because there are some good directions in this, actually.
No, there are. There was a lot of really great visuals with this.
Yep. And performances and stuff. Anyway, I cut you off there, Lee. What were you going to say about that?
I was going to say this scene where they're talking by the bins is very realistic to conversations that at least I've had with other minorities, where we just kind of talk about like, what were you told growing up, or were you told to keep your head down too, or try not to make waves, and being told that you had to censor yourself, which is ironic living in America and being American. But I certainly was. Like I was kind of told I can't make waves, because I just don't look like what people expect an American to look like. And I can't overstep my boundaries and that sort of thing. And it's not in my nature to be that way at all. So it was very difficult to try and balance that. And then eventually getting to that point in my age where I just stopped caring and just, but I think this was one of those, this whole conversation they have with each other is so realistic and is so on point. I remember just watching it. I was like tearing up and crying just in the scene. Like it wasn't even like the end scene. Like I cried at the end scene, of course, as well. But the scene, like in the middle of this episode, I was like, they got it so right. Like I was like, it's so good.
Mm-hmm. It was a good scene. I like that this episode doesn't pull any punches in, perhaps not the N word, but Negro, and this is Packy there. Like, people call me, it's like hearing those words in Doctor Who, like almost like it comes as more of a shock, I suppose. It's kind of like in what was that episode, Sarah Jane Adventures, where Nazis came back or something like that. And I think they dropped an M-bomb in that, like in a very like telling scene. It's been so long ago that I can't remember, but I thought, wow, that is so important for a children's show at the time to sort of be dealing with this and like confronting it head on, like not through metaphor or anything like this, but like full on dealing with it, And 1955 seems like a long ways ago, but does it really sometimes?
Yeah, it's not that long ago. I love this too when Graham talks about when he has a memory about his wife. And this was another reason why I love this episode. It's very humanizing because with Doctor Who, you tend to lose people and then you just move on to the next episode. So, and you're like, oh, yes, yeah, you just move on. This is the first time they really, and in this entire season, really, they show that grief is a journey, and that the reality is, even as you go on other adventures, you're still on this internal journey of getting through your grief and coming to terms with the loss of a loved one, and it ultimately alters his relationship with his grandson by the end of the season. But I think it was really important that they did that. Like they really addressed that human concept because I really hadn't done it before.
Yeah, I also I like the way he just says, and I wish he was here. I like how subtly Bradley Walsh plays it.
Speaking of direction, I like that with the previous thing with them discussing that, it's all it is a pan across to them, and it doesn't break out of that 2-shot at all. It just stays right on them because there's no need for anything else. Just keep it on them talking, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed with this season, they're also really focused on focusing in on the character and all the characters and their faces, as opposed to zooming out and seeing the whole area. So I think it creates a serious sense of like intimacy with the characters, and you feel more involved with them as they go through these, different episodes.
Anamorphic lenses too. Which I'm such a fan of now. I've never really noticed anamorphic lenses before. Then I had to read up about it. But
I've always like how Yaz gets stuck in the middle here.
I know.
So this is so my mom has a story similar to this that she told me a long time ago. But when they immigrated to America, she was in Florida and they still had segregated bathrooms. And she literally had no idea where she wasn't sure because they didn't have that in Vietnam. So she was like, she saw white and she saw colored and she looked and she went, well, I'm tan. So I'm
like,
gonna,
what's the dividing line?
Yeah. So like, I'm going to go to the colored bathroom. Like she had no idea. And so like someone stopped her and said, no, not that one. And she goes, oh, okay, well, I'm not white. And that person was confused as well. And I remember telling that it's an amazing story, but I also was just like, I kind of feel like that's how Asians are in America. Like we are our own checkbox. Like we're not white, but we're also a lot of times we're not considered a minority either. So we're kind of like our own thing for some reason. And so people tend to not have an idea of where to place us, or like we're not like minority enough to minority or something like that, even though we obviously are.
Right.
But yeah, I remember mainly because when Obama had mentioned, when he talked about all these different minorities and he said Asians, we're like, we got mentioned. We were so excited. People didn't forget about us again. Yeah. Yeah. So,
our racist system is set up for, black people. So you actually, our racism predates your arrival here. So we don't quite know how to be
we're not sure.
against you.
According to Queensbury rules, we need to...
We're like, somewhere you fit in there. Yeah. It's very much
we really do want to other you. We really do,
yes,
but we just haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah.
So
I live. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say we're sort of like the silent minority. Like we're very like no one takes much notice of us, but that's also why we get like that whitewashing in Hollywood, like things like Ghost in the Shell and that sort of thing. So
God, yeah.
So when So when I'm blanking, the newest movie that came out in 2018.
The Avengers movie?
No, yeah. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of it? Crazy Rich Asians. It was like an all Asian cast. Yeah. It was like not since like the Joy Luck Club, really, that sort of thing. So it was like, hey, we actually have like a movie that's, touches on sort of like some of these cultural touchstones in a major film and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, we tend to get people tend to forget a lot. And I've had people ask me like, does it matter? Like, do you need to have specific, like, do you want like a Vietnamese person playing Vietnamese? I said, honestly, I'm just happy if there's any. Like, I don't really get, like, I'm happy for any sort of small amount of representation because we have so little of it.
Well, I'm mildly amazed when any Canadian show is even a mild hit in the U.S. But Kim's Convenience is a Canadian show.
Yeah,
and like there's some of my Asian friends in America are like, oh my God, have you seen this show? It's like it's all Asian.
Like, yeah,
they're all from, it's just like, yeah, it's on CBC all the time. What are you talking about? Like, but like so many people hold that dearly because like how often do you see that on TV, especially in America? I mean, it sort of just came, okay, sure, why not? It's a show in Canada. Like we don't have quite the hang up. I don't know if the hang up's the right word, but it just felt, maybe because it was coming from the CBC, it just felt perfectly normal to have a show like that on the CBC. But then people see it on Netflix and they're just like, oh my God. And the one of the actors is now like one of the leads in an upcoming Phase 4 Marvel movie, whose names I can't remember, but
I can't remember.
Simu Liu is the actor's name. But
yeah.
Also, being about a Korean family, not all the actors are Korean, and
No.
that doesn't seem to bother anybody either. So
No, like I said, we've been like starving for any sort of representation, so we're just gonna go with something for now, and we'll do with the rest later. Yeah.
Oh,
And see, I have a hard time wrapping my head around this because I live in Vancouver, which is I think 40% Asian, and it's just the fabric of the city is that. So I just doesn't, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's not what.
so when
yeah.
I go places like, I went to Ottawa and it was like there's the only Asian person was my friend I was visiting, and I'm like, where the hell is everybody?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah,
This is weird.
I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I went to the most diverse high school in America, so I was very much steeped in it. And then when I went to university, still in Virginia, but just other parts of Virginia, I was like, there's like a lot of white people. Like, I was like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, and it's very common. I'm usually the only Asian person. Like, it's very common. And it's not that unusual. But it definitely, we went to Denver not too long ago, and I was like, there are other Asians here. Like, I was like so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one this time. So I know what you mean. It's almost like reverse cultural shock. Like the lack of culture.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Is very like startling sometimes.
I know I was working in the Crow's Nest Pass, which is Alberta, and it's a very small town, and the only Asian people are the ones running the Chinese restaurant. So I was eating with chopsticks, and everybody in the restaurant stopped and looked at me because I'd never seen a white guy do that. And I'm like,
they're like, but you don't need a
"What's the
fork.
big deal?"
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how are you doing that? I'm like, I put the sticks in my hand and I use them. Like trust me. Like all my friends in university were Asian, so you went over to eat dinner. You better learn how to use chopsticks,
Or you are not eating.
Don't look dumb in front of mom, or you're doomed.
Yeah.
I want to point out a shot there that I really liked where, Jodie Whittaker's sort of strutting around a little bit. But the camera's locked off and locked in focus as well. So Jodie has sort of goes away and is out of focus. And only once she sort of hits her spot is she perfectly in focus. So she has to focus her performance, but also knows that she has to be on an exact spot on the ground while she does it. And I'm always impressed by actors that do that. They have very little flexibility when it comes to that shot. They have to be exactly where the camera goes. I'll be doing.
I
this.
forgot what a dirtbag this guy is.
I'll be jumping in with the relevant talk about race relations and stuff in America with talk about camera lenses. So don't mind me. It's like an alternate commentary track here, but
Storm Cage is a reference to where River Song was, right?
yeah, yeah.
Don't
like it.
I don't like it.
Call him Rando.
You know what? It's interesting that it's kind of both of them are off camera, like they're not in the middle of the shot as well. Depending on what they're saying, depending on the dialogue. And I had an interesting panel where I had this young white man who's probably in his 20s. We were talking about Rosa. Well, we were talking about historicals. I wasn't actually even gearing towards SJW stuff. We were just talking about historicals in general. And of course, somebody brings up Rosa. But he was just he didn't like the episode because he felt like you didn't get to see all sides. And I had to pause and I went,
Whoa.
I'm pretty sure we all agreed segregation was bad. I don't think there was another side to this, but okay.
Let's.
But I queried to him, I said, is your issue with the episode more to do with the fact that the monster is a good looking white guy? That the bad guy looks someone who looks similar to you or looks like it could be your friend.
Uh-huh.
And then he kind of he didn't say anything after that, and then we moved on. But I was but it was that was something I talked about with some of my other male friends who are also white, and they didn't take as much away from this episode as much as I did. And they would have to rewatch it again. But I told them, I think it's because for me, off the bat, I was like, yeah, the white guy can totally be the bad guy. No question about it. I totally got it immediately because that's what it's like for me in real life, in my daily life. So I thought it was interesting for them that they wouldn't pick up on that until they watched it a few more times.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, it's just I think they felt like initially they didn't feel like the monster was believable. But if you ask a lot of other people who are a minority background are like, oh, no, that's, yeah, totally believable. Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like that. Like, it's not some alien to disguise. Like, he doesn't like, oh, I'm actually like a 6-headed green alien or something like that. Like, we see that the actual villain is a full-on white male. You know, like that is the villain. You know, we shouldn't sort of like dumb it down and sort of like escape and say, oh no, it was aliens from outer space, crazy, weird-looking aliens. No, no, no. It's someone who could just very easily pass, apart from the accent, of course, but.
I think they're good too because there's like different layers of racism, which is kind of how it is, right? You have the actual, like the not the actual, but the bad guy who is like a radicalized racist. You know, he got radicalized in prison, but then you also have these other layers of like subtle racism, and then slightly more overt racism, and that's kind of how racism is. Like you have the people who are just very, you can call it like you see it, right?
Yeah.
But then you have other people who are more overt about it, but still say things that make you go, but really? Like, is that really how you feel right now? Because I don't know if you hear yourself.
I like that Ryan has these moments, you know, like he just goes off. You know, he goes, go follow her. And, you know, to let Ryan loose in a world that is very alien to what he knows and very dangerous to what he knows, I thought is a lot of confidence on the part of the Doctor.
Especially for episode 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, a short time ago, we had what I think is my favorite scene is of the episode where he's, you know, excuse me, Dr. King. Yes, Rosa
Yeah, I was
Parks?
going to say the
What
same
is it?
thing. Yeah. He's all starstruck.
He's like, excuse me, Dr. King.
hell, I would
yes,
be.
yes, Mrs. Rosa Parks. Whoa. Like, it's a great line.
Like, can you imagine just being sitting, like, well, you can't, obviously, but just being in the middle of that would be insane.
Because, you know, I remember, like, also reading up on thinking, like, I didn't really put together that Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King were, like, contemporaries and, like, you know, friends and, like, part of the, like, same community. Like, you know, Martin Luther King becomes a much bigger thing in the late 50s, early 60s, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, in 1955, was he, like, more local at that point, or?
I don't know. I don't know the history, and I don't pretend to know.
Yeah, the March on Washington 63, and he gets assassinated in 68.
68, so. Yeah, April 4th in a Memphis sky. But, you know, it's so to someone who is unfamiliar with the story, it's like you're like, oh, what the hell? Yeah, they're just shoving anyone like Daleks and Cybermen together in the same story. Like, come on, that never actually happened. But no.
Yeah, they actually were contemporary to each other.
History sometimes happens at different times, but sometimes it is amazingly happening at the same time. Like, it's for some reason, I think of this, you know, recently the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing was happening, and I was like watching some retroactive live coverage and stuff, and it says, oh, we cut away from our Chappaquiddick coverage to bring you parts of the moon landing. You know, that whole Ted Kennedy bit like happened like 2 days before the moon landing. It's like you forget about
I didn't
this.
even realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Woodstock happened less than a month later, or just over a month, or anyway, 4 weeks later, basically. This guy is duped. What a dupable guy. Oh, wow, trip to Las Vegas. God, what an innocent time 1955 was.
I love that it's very fun, too. Like, I love that it's kind of like, this is like, I like that they kind of did insert some humor into this episode to kind of lighten it a bit.
Yeah.
But like where she talks about like, don't tell anyone I gave Elvis a mobile phone, or, you know, we're going to get you to Frank Sinatra. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't Elvis lose the phone or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he has.
Oh no, I think Elvis lent it to Frank, is what she says. Like she let Frank Sinatra have that phone.
I'm just kind of surprised nobody says, why is a woman wearing pants?
Yeah.
He
probably says it. He probably turns around and says it to his wife when she closes the door. He's like, "You won't believe the person who came up to my door. She was wearing pants."
There's a lady wearing pants. Well, I'll be. That's not even close to the Alabama accent.
More Boss Nass than Boss Hogg.
I like how he makes us just deliberately.
I'm provoking him. Yeah. You can't be here. What is this? It's a white man's river? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Well, it's a white man's seat now.
Yeah.
I've read, but
I will say they were very good about the terms they use because, they don't, it's a family show, right? So they're not going to use the N word, but, they use terms like boy and, coloreds and that sort of thing. And it's very, and like they call Yaz Mexican. And so they're very good about figuring out still ways to show racism without like doing the very obvious N word.
The whole Mexican thing is, it's kind of funny in a way, but it also rings true. It's like, well, I don't know how to classify you, so I guess you're a Mexican now.
Yes, yeah. You're like, oh, you kind of fit around here. I've had plenty of people.
I've got a friend.
Plenty of people call me Chinese all the time, so it's not like, and they'll use derogatory terms. I'm like, that's not even. Sometimes I'm gonna be like, that's not even the right derogatory term. Like I'm Vietnamese.
Get your racist slurs right.
Yeah,
people.
like fix your slurs, guys. Wrong slur.
Yeah.
I used to work with a guy who was Sri Lankan, and one of the guys, and this is in Alberta, which is Canada's Texas, would refer to him as the P word, and I'd be like, that's not even geographically close. You know how tiny Pakistan is? like just mathematically, you're wrong.
Yeah.
He's like, no, they're all, and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, fine.
Oh yeah, anywhere from Lebanon to Nepal, I think is pretty much.
According to certain Albertans, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
or certain white people. Let's not single out Albertans.
Thank you very much, Warren.
I get the guessing game a lot. I don't know why. I don't know why this became a thing.
Oh yeah, you're not a parlor trick, for God's sakes.
They're like, are you da da da? No. Are you da da da? No. Let me tell you. No, don't tell me. I was like, why?
Let me tell you. No,
why is this a guessing
I need to get this on my fourth or fifth guess to really impress you.
And like, I've got a friend. I was down in San Antonio for work, and my friend is like Hispanic American, and I was saying, why do you take flack? You're more American than I'm Canadian. I'm only second generation Canadian, for God's sakes. You're like sixth generation American or something like that. That's a hell of a lot American, more North American than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will tell people, I'm like, well, I'm from Northern Virginia. And they're like, no, but where are you really from?
I have a
Northern Virginia
childhood friend who was born in Pakistan when he was 2 and his family moved here. And, so I remember someone asking, where are you from? Oh, Camrose. No. Where are you from? Oh, okay. I see what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, I also get it to where I'm like, but really, I was born in Northern Virginia. That's like literally where I'm from.
There. I could show you a map.
Yeah.
Can I say how impressed I am with the fact that they have rusted old cars here in South Africa? I mean, I just the production value.
All the vehicle work is pretty impressive.
It's really amazing. Again, separate commentary track to the normal conversation we're having here, but still, old cars are worthy of some time too.
In Cuba, old American cars are a massive thing. So maybe there's something comparable down in South Africa.
And in Mexico, it's all VW bugs, the old school ones. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but it sure was when I was there.
I know it wasn't, well, maybe it was intentional. Probably not, though. I think it was just like, hey, there's, 1950s America kind of looks like South Africa. But we should touch on the fact that this is shot in South Africa, a country with a very troubling history with race relations and apartheid
no kidding.
The early 90s. I was watching an episode of Warren and my new favorite show, The Sandbaggers, and they're talking about how, I lent Jeffrey Wellingham the secret document about South Africa or something, and like there was some big thing about, we can't let the South Africans see why not. Oh, right, because they were basically, for lack of a better term, blacklisted by all the nations of the world, basically. Like South Africa was just ostracized for their apartheid.
Yes and no. Because actually, Canadian point of pride here, Brian Mulroney was one of the first Western leaders to actually say, no, apartheid is nonsense. When Reagan wouldn't, and I don't think Thatcher would either.
No, actually,
but Thatcher, England's got its own history with South Africa, so.
Yeah. Yes, that's back when we had progressive conservative leaders.
Yes, and not retrogrades.
Yeah.
Doctor Who, always political.
Yep.
I've had people try and it's usually from the same type of fan, but like I've had people try and really bring that up and say like, do you think it's appropriate that Doctor Who's become so political or so? And I'm like, but it's always been. Do you not guys remember the Happiness Patrol? And like, when is it? It's actually always been this. But like, I think what people are more pushing up against is that it's looking at societal politics that are affecting them, or that they're, you know what I mean? Like, that's more what their issue is. It's not that Doctor Who hasn't been political. It's always been political. It's always made comments in society. It's just now they feel like it's a personal attack.
Yeah. If it makes you uncomfortable, it's not political. It's just making you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I work with a guy, not with a guy, but I'm sort of through work, and he said he loves Jodie, but he was like, I think it's getting too political. And I had to say to him, no, it was like this in the 70s, man, and the 60s.
Yeah.
Just about stuff you didn't care about.
There's a cameo from a guy who was in Delton the Bannerman right there. That guy who's accosting Ryan. Played Hawk.
Oh,
To
okay.
Stubby K's Weissmuller. Yep. Well, I'll get you, Weissmuller. Well, I'll get you. That guy.
Dear.
That's just about as good. So he's an American actor, actually. So they flew him down to... maybe they didn't shoot that bit in South Africa. I feel like they would fly like a large part of the cast down just for one scene, but... There's a Rando.
I'm going with Rando.
I like Rando.
You're onto something here.
Yeah.
Marlon Rando.
Marlon Rando would be... Oh, that's got to be a thing, right? Marlon Rando.
I was going to say, wasn't it that Johnny Depp film, but that's Rango.
Rango. I thought you meant no, Johnny Depp. Where speaking of problematic people, Johnny Depp wears an outfit very much like this in a John Waters movie that I can't think
Yes,
of.
he does. Crybaby.
Crybaby. Yeah. Which is an obvious reference right here.
Totally.
Yes.
Really.
In this episode, there is a visual reference to every single John Waters movie, if you look closely.
That would be more likely in the Rachel Talalay episodes because she worked with John Waters.
That's right.
Yep. Somewhere in Heaven Sent is an homage to Serial Mom.
He just basically killed him. He just basically sent that guy back to the time of the dinosaurs or something, or however far back.
I didn't technically kill him, and also I love how he talks to himself.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, good job, man. Like, it's like what I probably would have done to myself. I was like, I did a good job with that. Yeah. Like,
Killed this guy.
I love this. So the scene that's coming up where they realize they can't leave the bus
Yeah.
is incredibly powerful.
Excruciating.
And I think especially because for Graham, he's having to be on the wrong side of history after majority of the episode. He talks about how, like, with his wife, she always told him, like, don't be like Blake, you know, that sort of thing. And it's very interesting because, like, a lot people have asked me, like, which character do I feel most akin to since this season, and I said it's funny, but it's actually Graham, mainly because he's a white ally, and I've found that I have surrounded myself with white allies where I could, and my husband is one too. So, like, I think that's why I felt like more akin, like I'm more like that's the character I most associate with. Because he doesn't like the idea that he has to stay there, and he speaks out about it the whole time, and I think it's very telling, and I really like his character as a result.
It's almost like there's a shame, like all that I've learned from Grace, and look where I am now. Like look at the position I'm like. Basically, to affect history, I have to be against it.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it coming. This bit surprised me. I think only when I realized it when it's like right there. Like that's just what. Oh no! Like if they get off, she can move, and history.
Yeah, this is the tense making.
It is,
and partly because of what's happening, but also partly because they're like stuck in the middle of it.
Yeah.
They kind of made their own bed with this one.
And there's a look that Jodie gives too. There's a great shot with Rosa behind. Right here, I'm going to need those now. I think it's like this now. Like we are in, like, they're right there. That line is as it happened. Basically from that line on until the end of the scene is word for word how this happened and exactly how it happened. Like 3 passengers got up. She got up to let him, like, all this is like very thoroughly researched as to how this event actually went down. And it's fascinating that, like, such an event can be that fresh in the mind of those that were involved in it,
Oh, the music choice too was just beautiful.
I may have to turn it up a little bit.
Like, I don't think I should have to. Might not be the thing that you would say now, but it's what she said then. There, that's the shot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just utterly helpless, you know?
The bus driver's performance reminds me of Twisted Sister's "I Want to Rock" video.
It does a little bit.
I always wonder when I see stuff like
Some
racially
bloody-
charged stuff in a movie, like what do they do after they say cut? How guilty do you feel as being the guy who has to throw that out there?
Well, I know Leo DiCaprio felt horrible during Django Unchained, and Samuel L. Jackson had to basically says, no, it's okay. This is the character. Just imagine you're the character.
Oh, this song choice, Rise Up, is brilliant for this.
Yeah.
I like bawled. Just bawled.
Honestly, it's the asteroid bit that got me.
Oh, that, yeah. So, you know what's interesting? I think this was very poignant because this is no one stepping in. Everybody, there's so many people. There's some, of course, on the bus who feel like she's wrong, but they're focusing on the characters who are looking at this episode, and like Jodie and everybody who they can't step in. And and a lot of times what happens with these sort of racist, incidents is that no one steps in, no one says anything. Everybody stays quiet. Because if I'm honest, societal change isn't happening not because the minorities aren't asking for it. It's because the majority are maintaining the status quo.
It's very true. At least they had that moment.
The music here is great too.
Yeah. I'll tie this into a hockey reference if you can believe it, but Rosa Parks did not have a glittering life after this. She wasn't knighted and like lived in palaces after this. She went through some pretty tough economic times, and husband died in 1977, and I think she ended up moving into like a modest apartment building in Detroit in the early 90s. And the owner of Little Caesars pizza chain and the Detroit Red Wings at the time, Mike Ilitch, actually heard about this and paid her rent for the rest of her life, basically. Silently. This only came out, I think, after Ilitch died, but a couple years ago. So there you go. That's me saying, yeah, yay for the white guy. Yay for that rich white guy who did that
Yay for
one
hockey.
good thing.
Wow.
Is that really what the asteroid looks like, though? Is that accurate? I mean, I could buy,
I assume it is accurate.
1955-ish in South Africa, but I need accuracy in my asteroids.
I just think that's really cool. It's like, historically speaking.
Yeah. What do you think of the music?
None of those bus drivers are getting asteroids named after them.
Yeah. What do you think of the music on the credits? At the time, I thought it was... I don't know. I'm still in two minds about it. It would be so jarring if they had the regular Doctor Who theme.
Yeah, I think it would have taken you... I feel like it would have taken me out of it if they had cut it short and then started playing the theme song.
Yeah.
I think it lets you... I think the idea was to kind of let you sit in that moment, and just feel the weight of that episode by continuing the song that you had heard earlier during her, triumphant protest.
Same with Demons of the Punjab.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. It totally works.
Yeah.
And for the record, the asteroid thing is completely accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Down to the number.
June 9th, 2010.
But not named until 2014 officially.
Yeah.
Well, relatively recently.
Yeah, I think so for me, so I'm going to tell, because I've told a million stories in this episode. Sorry, guys.
All right, so good.
No, so I got really emotional in that scene about how no one was stepping in, because there was and Nathan's actually written about this too. And it really, we've been together. I mean, we've been together for 13 years. And we've talked about race very openly, but there was an incident back in, I want to say 2018, where we were at a CVS, and for those of you who don't know, it's a pharmacy. And there was this white couple who was ahead of him, and I wasn't there for it. He came home and told me the story, but he was like, "Oh, I had a really weird thing happen." He said there was this couple, and like this guy was just screaming at the pharmacist, and the pharmacist is black. And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, and then the guy calls him the N-word, and I was like, "Oh, what?" And he was like, "Yeah," like just starts screaming these like slurs at him, and I'm like, what happened?" And he goes, "Well, the girlfriend felt embarrassed, so she's like, go back to the car, like go sit, like da-da, and sends him away." And I was like, "Well, what did you do?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything." And I was like, "Wait, what?" I was livid. So like, so he didn't do anything. He was like, "Well, the guy could have beat me up." And I was like, "I don't care. We have good insurance. It's fine. Like, I work at a hospital. That's fine." And he was just like, he was bigger than me. I was like, "I don't care. Da, da, da." So like, it spurred this whole conversation. And I said, you have to use your white privilege to say something, because like I would have just yelled at the guy, or I would have just been like, "Dude, what the hell?" That sort of thing. Hopefully it doesn't count as a curse word. Sorry. What the heck? I was, like I would have said something, but he wouldn't have cared because I'm a Asian female. But like coming from another white guy, he would have been like, just being like, "Hey, dude, not cool." Just to make him think about it, because it's coming from someone who looks more similar to him. And so we had a really long discussion about it, because I was pretty like upset. And I told him, I was like, I come home with stories all the time from the hospital about people saying things to me, and like people aren't supportive of when I'm upset about these incidents and that sort of thing. And so after we talked for a while, I was like, "You really need to go back and find that pharmacist and like say something to him, and he's like, "I'm going to call him." So he called CVS and he asked to speak to the pharmacist who was there. And he's like, "Hey, I just want to tell you, like, I saw what happened, and I'm really sorry I didn't speak up and say something." And the pharmacist he was like, "Oh, no, it's okay." He's like, "No, but it's not okay, dude. Like, I just want you to know it was completely not okay. It was way out of line, and I'll know better for next time. But I wanted to apologize to you that I didn't do it this time."
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I think for Nathan, it was a turning point for him. Because I've always told him usually the way things change is one person has to speak up, and generally because of our mob mentality, we tend to all jump in then, but you have to have that first person to toe the line a bit. And it was interesting because then he had this, it was a really great op-ed article about like white people need to stop being cowards. And it was a great title, but like essentially the story is like that we now need like our white allies to speak up and say something on our behalf, because like no one else has been listening after all these decades. And it would really help stem the change and, create this wave of change. And a lot of people's comment, and he shared his story about the CVS thing. And a lot of people afterwards wrote like, "Oh, I wouldn't have said anything either. I would have been frozen in fear, da da da." And he kept writing, he's like, "No, guys, I'm not looking for justification of the fact that I didn't say anything. Like I'm just sharing this because I want you guys to know, like, this is what happened, and I would have done it differently. And I really want you guys to be prepared for this, so that way you will know for, that sort of thing." And I told him, I was like, "You get it now." I was like, "You're finally on the other side. Why I was upset you didn't say anything, because now you see how other people are trying to, somehow say it's okay that you didn't say anything. And now you see it from my side and get that it was a big deal not to say something." So I think that's why this episode was really important for me to be a part of, commentary-wise, and really speak about, because it was a really important subject matter, and it's so contemporary now, strangely enough, for being historical. And I'm just like, I'm really glad that they did it this season, especially having the first female doctor as well, because that was also an important like viewpoint too for viewers at home. But yeah, it was interesting. It was really, I'm actually really, really glad that this episode happened, because it's created a lot more interesting panels and talks as a result of conventions too.
Mm-hmm. And podcast commentaries, dare I say.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
By the way, I have breaking news. As of today, which won't be breaking news by the time this commentary goes out, there's a Barbie Rosa Parks doll coming out, along with Sally Ride. They just got announced today.
Yes, wow. I saw that, yeah. I think somebody had made a comment saying, "Hey, this would be great for your Doctor Who collection." Wink, wink.
I guess that's technically true. But
If you got the Jodie 13th Doctor, Barbie, well, hey.
I did not get the Jodie 13th Doctor Barbie, unfortunately. Otherwise, I wouldn't think twice about getting that. And Sally Ride.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been fun and important, Lee. I'm so glad that you chose this episode, and we chose you to be on this episode. There was never any doubt. As you said, you chose this one at the top of the list, and I can totally see why. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for letting me speak about this subject and letting me go on my little SJW train.
Oh hell no!
Quite right.
It's. I mean, we might have said this before, but we are a podcast with 3 regular white guy hosts, and it's impossible. I mean, sure we can empathize, sure we can watch TV shows and try to see how other people see the world and what affects them and stuff. But sometimes you just have to invite people on who have lived this and to really get that perspective firsthand. And so we're glad that you came along and did this with us. So thank you very much. Where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Yeah, so we are on Facebook as Pixel Who, PIXELWHO. We're also on Instagram as Pixel Who, and then we have a Twitter handle, but someone sat on our original name. So on Twitter, we're Pixel Who Art, ART. But yeah, we also go to tons of conventions, so we often post like what our convention schedule will be and what we're doing next and the fun projects that we're coming out with. So you'll definitely see us around, and usually Nathan is at the booth because I am running around myself. I'm usually running around and doing panels and that sort of thing. So if you guys are doing conventions, you'll definitely see us, both of us speaking on panels. But our next one, so I guess by the time this episode airs, we will have done Dragon Con. But our next 2 shows are the Unearthly Convention in Long Island, and we're also doing Chicago TARDIS, and we've been doing Gallifrey for a couple of years as well, so we'll be there next year too. But yeah, we also do a whole bunch of other general shows. Like we'll be at New York Comic Con if you guys are there, which is a huge madhouse, but it's a lot of fun. And I think Christopher Eccleston is at that one, so that's exciting.
He is.
But yeah, I'm always open for having these conversations if people want to have them, and I love, like I said, once I kind of broke open the floodgates of talking about this sort of stuff, it was just no way I could bottle it up anymore. And I appreciate having a platform for that stuff.
We are happy to provide the platform to you today. So, all right, that's it for this here episode of Radio Free Skaro, everyone. Next week, as you saw, the Saranga Conundrum, no, Arachnids in the UK, episode 4 of our commentaries for Series 11. So join us then, won't you? Until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.